The basic things you need to know about serving God. Serving, as is noted at the very beginning of this booklet in the introduction, is at the heart and the core of the Christian life. And that point cannot be overemphasized or emphasized enough, because even as Jesus himself said, he didn't come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. So we're to follow in his example and in his footsteps, not to be saved, but because we are saved. And scripture makes that distinction very clear, that we are saved to do good works, which he has ordained for us in advance, but we're not saved by those good works. Well, in this little booklet, we'll talk about the privilege and the responsibility of serving, as well as the blessing and the reward for those whose lives are characterized by a lifestyle of serving. But we'll also talk about the reality that serving is not always easy, serving is not always glamorous, serving is not even always enjoyable or pleasant. Think about Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. That was not a glamorous task that anyone aspired to, and yet it was the example that Jesus set for us and for his disciples at that time of the kind of life that we are called to live. Now, one of my favorite stories about serving is really what happens at the wedding in Cana of Galilee when Jesus turned water into wine. This was his first miracle, but if you remember in that story, he told servants that were standing nearby to fill jars that were empty, to fill them with water, and then to draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. Well, as they did that, a miracle unfolded in the process. And while the guests at the wedding benefited from and were the recipients of that miracle, it was only the disciples and the servants who knew where that wine had come from. That's the privilege of being a servant, is that we get invited into and get to participate in miracles unfolding in the lives of others. You know, it's one thing to be on the receiving end of a miracle, but it's a whole other level and thing to be used in the process of a miracle unfolding in someone else's life. And so that's the privilege that we have as servants and as those who are called to serve. Again, in this booklet, we'll look at the characteristics of a servant. We'll look at God's heart, especially for those that are poor and needy, and our calling and responsibility to especially serve the most vulnerable. And there are other many very practical ways that this booklet will discuss about how we can serve wherever we are and whomever is in need, as we think about the basic things you need to know about serving God.